In the late 70s, my mom was in her 20s and living in a brand new apartment complex in Houston, Texas. It was so brand new that the phone service wasn't even fully working yet, and her building was one of the last to get access. My mom had just gotten back from a vacation to Cancun, and so had made a pretty hefty trip to the grocery store to restock her fridge and pantry. It took her several trips to the car and back, with her unlocking and relocking her front door each time she came in or out. During her trip, she noticed that a friend of her neighbor's was waiting outside their door. My mom had seen this man, Sven, and even hung out with him and her neighbors, a young couple, several times. He was Scandinavian, and quite striking and friendly. On her last trip up the stairs, Sven and my mom made eye contact once again, and he asked her, "Are they home?" with a nod to his friend's apartment. My mom replied that she didn't know. Sven explained that the three of them were meant to go to a movie, but just assumed they were running late. My mom felt bad for him, and said that she would offer for him to use her phone, but the service was out. Instead, she invited him to wait inside her apartment until her neighbors got home. My mom is a cautious woman. Even by her 20s, she had dealt with many creepy encounters. She always locked doors, always looked twice, never made herself look timid, and questioned everyone's motives. She thought that she knew Sven well enough to know that he was well-intentioned and harmless. She and Sven entered the apartment, and he made himself comfortable on her couch. My mom went to putting her groceries away and grabbed a can of soda. She called to Sven. "Do you want some Coke?" He replied, "No thanks, I brought my own." My mom peeked around the doorway to see Sven arranging lines of cocaine on her coffee table. She walked out to him, and he offered her some. She said a quick, "No thanks," and he told her to suit herself, and lowered his face to the table with a rolled-up dollar bill to his nose. My mom stood over him, watching in confused disbelief. She came to her senses and told him, "I think you should leave." He scoffed and began to reach for her arm. She tried to pull away, but he grabbed her and began to pull her down on top of him. She ripped herself from his grip and told him, "I'm a big, strong girl, and I can fuck you up. I think you need to leave. Now." He gave her an amused, impressed grin, and left her apartment without further trouble. As soon as Sven was gone, my mom locked her door and waited in a state of shock. After several minutes, she looked out of her window to see Sven and his shiny Excalibur parked perpendicular behind her car, effectively blocking her from leaving. Panic set in. Her phone was out. Everyone in her family and group of friends knew this. They wouldn't know to be worried when they didn't hear from her. She had no way of contacting anyone or leaving for help without Sven noticing. She waited for nearly half an hour, staring out the window to keep an eye on Sven. Suddenly, he pulled away. My mom had her purse and keys ready and bolted out the door, ran down the stairs and jumped in her car, locking the door instantly. She thought she was home free, but as she looked in her rear-view mirror to reverse, she saw the Excalibur parked behind her again, blocking her from leaving. Horror filled her as she realized that he had just circled the complex in hopes of this very thing happening. He grinned at her from his window as she struggled with what to do. She put her car in reverse, but he didn't budge. He just grinned even more, laughing to himself. Then my mom realized that this Excalibur he was driving was worth a whole lot more than her beat-up car. She grinned back at Sven as she slammed the gas pedal, throttling her car backwards as fast as it would go. Sven, fearing the damage that would come to his car, pulled out of the way quickly, leaving room for my mom to escape. My mom pulled out of the complex. Sven followed. She got onto Highway 59, a very busy freeway that went through the most populous parts of town. Sven followed. He was close behind her, swerving and changing lanes when she did. Up ahead, my mom saw traffic. She swerved in front of a car that had been braking for it, and Sven got left behind. My mom drove to her friend's house, banging on the door to let her in. They sat in her friend's apartment watching for Sven, but he never came. She had lost him. When my mom told friends and family this tale, they thought she was overreacting and embellishing the story. They knew how cautious she was, and figured it was an overactive imagination on her part. Nobody believed her fully until a few months later, when looking at a magazine rack. My mom saw Sven's face on the cover of Houston City magazine. She snatched it up and read the story. Sven, who worked at the notorious Screw magazine, had been arrested for raping multiple women. He would overpower them when they were in vulnerable positions, tie them up, rape them, and urinate on them while doing all sorts of other demeaning, humiliating acts to them. He was only convicted of raping 2 of them, but there were other victims, whose cases just didn't have enough proof. Very soon after, my mom's neighbors moved out quickly and without a trace left behind. She wonders to this day if they had anything to do with Sven's antics, or if they were just as unaware as she had been. Some background. This happened a few months ago to me and my girlfriend, referring to her as Jay in this post, when we went on our first holiday together. We had decided to go to Paris, but could only afford 3 days, so we had to cram in an awful lot of early travelling into a very short space of time. We live in the north of England, and we're going to France by Eurostar. Cut price coach travelling from one end of the country to the other is not recommended. Anyway, we arrived at Gare du Nord at about 4:30 p.m. local time. Bear in mind we had been travelling since 3 in the morning and had barely been able to get any sleep on the journey, so we were completely shattered and just wanted to get to the hotel so we could rest. As we headed for the exit, we noticed several crowds of men gathered around the doors, talking to people going past. However, there was one guy standing away from the crowd, looking around at the people going past. He spotted us and came over. He was about the same height as me, I am around 6 foot, wore a short black overcoat, a black trilby hat, and a shirt and tie. He was mixed race, slim with stubble, and short dreads peeking out from under his hat. I'll be honest and say he was fairly handsome. There was nothing especially threatening about him that came to mind. Anyway, he came over and asked, "Do you want a taxi?" We went along with it and told him we did, and he told us to come with him, all smiley and friendly. He led us away from the crowds, through a side door and down a stairwell. That struck me as odd, but it soon became apparent it was a car park. There was some work being done outside the station, so it made sense. The guy then started to strike me as a bit odd. He was almost disarmingly cheerful and friendly, and he kept trying to take Jay's bag for her, even though she repeatedly insisted she was all right. After a minute or so of traipsing around the car park, we got to his vehicle. This was when I started to get the feeling something was up. It was a nice car, but there was no taxi sign. In fact, there was nothing at all about the car or the guy that screamed "taxi" to me. He took our bags and put them in the boot. Then what he said next really weirded me out, and I don't know why we didn't just leave then. "You, get in the back, and you, get in the front." The person he wanted in the front was me. That just came across as completely weird, but being idiot tourists who hadn't slept since about 5 p.m. the previous night, we carried on as normal and got in the car. Once inside, he told us that it would cost us €45 to get to our hotel. We were staggered by the cost, but knew that Paris was expensive, and I think we were frankly kidding ourselves by pretending this was just standard procedure on holiday. Anyway, he sped out of the car park with the radio on full blast. Every time he spoke, he sounded nervous and jittery, high-pitched and peppering his sentences with high-pitched laughter, either like he was in the last place in the world he wanted to be, or very excited about something. We were both getting a bit weirded out at this stage, but he was going too fast. It was then that a very happy accident happened. Somebody's car had broken down right in the center of the ticket gate, and we were trapped behind them. Our driver leaned out of the window and started shouting and swearing at him in French. His tone of voice was just completely off for normal road rage. He sounded borderline terrified. As the car park attendants rushed around the other car to sort out the problem, I took the chance to ask the driver if he had any kind of taxi driver's ID. His face momentarily fell, but he started smiling again pretty soon. He said he didn't understand, but I didn't believe that for a second because his English had been impeccable up until then. I asked what taxi company he worked for, and he replied with Uber. I'd kept pressing him for ID, but he kept saying he didn't understand, or that he didn't need one or some shit like that. It didn't matter. I looked back at Jay and we both just nodded and simultaneously got out of the car. He shouted after us, but we were gone. I went to the boot to get the luggage out and he sped forward. Jay was still halfway out of the car door, and I thought for one horrible moment he was trying to drive off with our things or, at worst, with Jay still in the car. But the other car stalled again, and he got about half an inch before the attendants rushed around him and started to shout at him. Some of the attendants came up to us and were very supportive and kind. They told us where to find the real taxi rank, and to avoid anyone like that in the future. They told us they have had a lot of problems with people like this before, and that you could never be too careful. They told us that the best case scenario is you get ripped off for about 40 to 45 euros, when you can get a real taxi for 10 euros or less. They didn't tell us what the worst case scenario was, and I'm quite glad about that. Anyway, we found a real taxi driver and he took us to our hotel safely. We got in and went straight to sleep, although we were both a little shaken by what happened. In retrospect, I think he was probably just aiming to rip us off, but there is still a little part of me that wonders if his demeanor was indicating something more sinister. Call it holidaymaker's naivete or whatever. Either way, we both felt so stupid for a long time afterwards for going along with this guy, and we were both so grateful. That car encountered problems, and that the car park attendants were doing the job so well. So, creepy Parisian taxi driver, let's not meet. Too long, didn't read. Got into a creepy fake taxi driver's car on holiday in Paris, saved by quick-thinking car park attendants, and a car randomly breaking down. A few friends and I decided to go for a cruise. We drove by my girlfriend's vacant house. They were doing renovations and weren't living there at the time. And she let out a, Guys, look! Oh my god, the window!" I looked at the second-story window, and the hair stood up on the back of my neck. It looked like an absolute giant of a man. Very tall, very broad, with wire-like matty hair. The house had a light on, but it was dark. He stood there like a silhouette, a hulking, menacing silhouette. My friend in the front started praying out loud. The driver nearly crashed from all the commotion at how loud we were. I instantly thought it was some squatter or homeless guy. Whatever. But they were convinced otherwise. I don't believe in the paranormal or anything like that, but seeing that thing gave me the chills like never before. I was instantly frozen with fear. We stopped at our friend Craig's house, and he instantly had to check it out. We were back at the house not 10 minutes later. Craig looked at me. "Come on, let's go." "What, are you fucking crazy? Just no, fuck that." He wouldn't let up, and I had to go with him to check this thing out. He said it was because no one else would, and because I was the second biggest. Now Craig is 6'7" and 280 pounds. Just a mountain of a man, and we were only 18. I still didn't feel safe. I felt like a 6'2" little girl. We walked up to the house. Click, the door was open. It wasn't even locked. Bizarre. The stairs were at the front door, and I was first. I'm slowly creeping upstairs, trying not to make a sound. It's worthless, as the mammoth behind me is stomping up the stairs, or so it seemed. The guy we had seen from the car would have been to the left, in one of the rooms. I went to the right, toward the kitchen, and told Craig he wanted to be here, so he could go check it out. It's pitch black. The hallway light wasn't working. The only light on is the one in the kitchen, where I am. He's walking down the hall, and all I hear is, "Jamie!" I'm so tense it scares the shit out of me. I jump. "What?" "Hand me your phone. I need the flash." I walk to him in the hallway, past the stairs, to give him my phone. He gets it, and starts using the flash, while I walk away. I'm just turning my way into the kitchen when we hear boom! Thump, 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 thunk, crash! Every hair in my body stood up. I whipped around and saw Craig in the hallway looking pale and frozen. I probably looked even worse. And there we were, both frozen. For only a few seconds, but it felt like an eternity. "What, are you fucking with me More sounds. "No, shut the fuck up," I hissed. Then, dead silence, both of us realized we had to get down those stairs. It was the only way out. On those same stairs, we heard something tear down as fast as they could. Then, we both ran at the same time, and I had to wrestle the mammoth that is Craig down the stairs to get down first. I scrambled my ass off, and barreled the hell out of there, not looking back, and that was that. Or so we thought. We got back to the car, and both probably looked like we'd just seen the devil himself. "What's wrong? It all looked good from here," my girlfriend Anna asked. We explained what went down, and everyone in the car looked at each other and wouldn't say anything. "What? What?" I asked, no one answering. "Just what the fuck? Spit it out!" shouted Craig. Finally, Anna spoke up. She said they thought it was all good from outside. She saw Craig and I using a flashlight in the room, and that I was being a creep behind the door. They thought I was trying to imitate the thing we had seen. I'm not kidding at this point. I could feel my eyes tear up when she spoke those words. I was nowhere near the room at any point. Someone was in the room when we didn't even know it, and must have been the person who tore out of there and bolted down the stairs. He would have been right behind me as I passed the stairs. This was 2 years ago. 2 weeks later, the contractors found dead animals mutilated in the basement. Hearing that made me relive the nightmare, and wonder what sick person we had stumbled upon. Chills. So sick man, wherever you are, let's not meet. Hey guys, Hellfreezer here. Thanks very much for listening to video 13. I'm going to keep my outro a little bit short this week because, well, my voice is starting to fail me, I think. Feeling a bit rough. I'm probably coming down with something. Hopefully it doesn't get too serious. So until next time, take good care of yourselves, and thanks again.